Hey, everybody. Welcome to Jets Talk Now. I'm Paul Fiori. Please click like and subscribe. We are now at 1,000 subscribers, which is amazing. 2 months into this, I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much. I wanted to hop on tonight, kind of an emergency pod. I had no intention of coming on, hence putting on a hat. It was kind of a mess. But the New York Jets dropped news about an hour and a half ago about major coaching changes. Actually, the Jets didn't announce it. It came from, I saw it on Twitter from Aaron Wilson. I'm going to share that with you guys right now. Jets moving on from Charles London, Eric Washington, Roosevelt Williams, Scott Turner, Aaron Curry, and Alonzo Escalante. And then he said they're likely reassigning one other offensive coach who they retained. And then he followed up with Jets offensive coordinator Tanner Angstrand remains on the staff, while role responsibilities and structure of the 29th ranked total scoring offense is expected to change and still being defined, right? So what does that mean? Well, let's talk about that. So I have been adamant that Glenn needed to make changes to the staff. I did an entire pod on ways Aaron Glenn could do things in the offseason to potentially earn back some fan trust. And my number one thing on the list was make changes to your coaching staff. Now, I've been pounding the table about Charles London since the season ended. In fairness to me, I've been pounding the table since they hired him that I didn't want him. So the fact that Glenn recognized the deficiencies and made the changes are big wins in the world of hoping that this guy can figure out how to improve as a head coach. Now, there are going to be people on Twitter, and Diana Rossini already posted this, that are going to react in a very sarcastic, negative way. Diana Rossini wrote, "This is a mess. What a mess." With no context, sure, you can sit here and go, look, we just fired a bunch of people. Defensive coordinator was fired earlier in December. After 1 year, the turnover on staff is insane. Okay, they won 3 games. 3. They didn't go 7-10. They weren't even 5-12 with poor things happening that you can just excuse in year 1. They were historically awful. It wasn't just the defense that was bad. The quarterbacks were the worst in the league. Okay? Your offensive line coaches were retained. Your offensive line coach was retained. You know what? Offensive line was pretty good. The running game was pretty good. They didn't replace the running backs coach. They didn't replace the wide receivers coach, although I question that. They didn't replace the tight ends coach. They didn't replace the offensive line coach. Passing game coordinator, good. QB coach, good. The interesting piece in all of it was Tanner Angstrand sounds like he's probably going to lose play calling duties. Now, if you talk to people who are smarter than me about, because this is not my area of expertise, I'm more of a consumer of content, and then I regurgitate what I learn and then form my own opinion. Very smart X's and O's people who followed Tanner Angstrand as the OC will tell you there were very good things within the poor season from the offense. They liked some of his creativity. They looked at the all-22 and saw open receivers and the QBs not being able to get them the ball. However, they did say that in the context of calling the game, he did not seem to have a good flow to his play calling, that it was just a series of plays being called and there was no consistency, right? And you saw that. I mean, even as someone who's not an expert in this, you can see games where they didn't establish their identity, like were they really running the ball and trying to be that smash mouth team? Like they would abandon Breece Hall at times in the game that you were confused by what was going on. So I can see that their fourth down play calling decisions were awful. So if they did an evaluation of this and said, you know what, Tanner was passing game coordinator in Detroit, really good passing offense. How much did he have to do with some of these passing concepts that guys were open and the ball wasn't getting there? If we retain him, maybe, and again, speculation, maybe they move him to passing game coordinator and you bring in a new OC. I'm open-minded to that because I'm not sitting here pounding the table for Tanner Angstrand. I gave him an incomplete this year, which I think is fair. So, although you're going to see people on social media ripping the Jets because it's conveniently easy to do so, it would be way worse if Glenn would have kept this group together. In my mind, that would have been a massive red flag. It's no different than in business, right? I run a business. I have people who work for me. I've been very fortunate to have really talented people over my career who've done a great job. When there's been people that have struggled in the roles, I've had to make difficult decisions and move on from them. If I had a historically bad year, performance-wise, and my bosses allowed me to continue in my role, if I didn't do a hard evaluation and replace people that were part of the challenges that caused a bad year, I probably would be fired very soon thereafter. That's the same thing in anything, I think. As the boss, you know, if Glenn wants to be the CEO of a team, which is what he said, he needs to recognize and hold people accountable for poor performance. I wanted him to do that. He did that. Tonight, I give Aaron Glenn all the credit for making these decisions. I said I'd be a fair arbiter of the truth when it comes to Aaron Glenn. There are going to be people that are going to go overreact and say he's a complete shit show and the Jets are a mess and this is just another example. And I view it completely opposite. This is what needed to be done. Now, he gets an A for recognition and action tonight. 100% gets an A. He got rid of everybody that I would want him to get rid of. And the Tanner thing, I actually understand if that's what happens. We'll see. But this is a two-part process. What happens now with the staff? Who does he bring in? Who's the DC? Right? If he is replacing Angstrand as the OC, who's that? Are we bringing in innovative minds, coaches on the rise, with really strong resumes that you could get excited about? Because some of these names you won't know. Most of them, I won't know either. I didn't know the name Charles London before he was announced as the QB coach. But what happened? Saw he was announced. Very simple. I go look up his resume, and I see throughout the resume, failed quarterbacks and a guy who was mainly a running backs coach. And I immediately slammed the hire, right? Tanner Angstrand, I thought was a good hire because he came from Detroit. He was a passing game coordinator. I was a little worried that he got passed over in Detroit for the OC role, but young, innovative mind, good. And I don't think he was a failure. I think that he's a guy that's still learning maybe. Chris Banjo was a good hire. Young, innovative mind, recently a player, did an amazing job. Steve Wilkes, on paper, you looked at and understood why he made that hire, but turned out to be a terrible hire. So now we sit back because this is Glenn's second bite at the apple on his staff. He won't get a third. He just won't. So if this recognition, which was so good, happens and he brings in young, innovative minds, highly respected, guys that are coveted in the league to take on roles that are important to the ability of this team to be successful and grow, he has a significantly better chance to be successful as the CEO head coach. Then it just becomes, how's his game management decisions? Is he got a good vision for the team? Is he leading the locker room the right way? But if you have a great OC and a great DC and these guys are running, you know, the practices and offensive and defensive schemes, you're creating a competitive advantage on X's and O's that currently the Jets do not have. So I am now in the mode of you get credit for these difficult decisions because it's never easy to fire people. You get credit for that. You get an A. Now, who do you bring in? Rumors are very, very, very noisy that Wink Martindale is going to be the DC. We don't know if that's just his camp putting it out there. You know, every reporter and their mother keeps calling him the leader in the clubhouse. The Jets are operating in a very, very quiet manner. So I'm confident that those sources are not coming from the Jet side. It's probably Wink. And I saw, I believe it was Will Parkinson in Badlands talking about the concern. Forget about the concern about him being an older guy that nobody's really, and it's not about his age. He's out of the league. His schemes are kind of dated. No one's pounding the table for him. He has no other interviews. He's literally sitting there waiting for a job. If Wink's camp is putting this stuff out there, knowing how the Jets like to operate, that feels like a really bad mix. You got a DC who's vocal by nature, who's not afraid to speak up, who has a camp that's talking to reporters. That seems like a potentially toxic thing. Hopefully it won't be, if that's who they hire. But if they hire Wink, I am like, the A that they get tonight for the decisions that were made quickly becomes a D plus C minus if you hire Wink. Same thing with the OC. You bringing in John Morton. Who are you bringing in as your OC? Like, I want to see who they bring in for their QB coach. Again, I won't know the names. Maybe not. Maybe the OC we do. We will know the OC, like, most likely. But do these guys have good resumes? Do these guys have experience that makes you feel good about them upgrading the talent level on the staff? Or are we just replacing chairs on the Titanic? So as fans, we really need to be measured in how we view this. You could choose to be how you want to be. If you hate Aaron Glenn, you might just lean into this as a way to just call him a disaster and a joke because he had to fire so many members of his staff. If you're a Glenn supporter, you're going to be ecstatic because you think that this shows that he is really a leader and holding people accountable. If you're like me, who is a skeptic, you will look at it, I think, through the lens of, okay, good step, good first step. Let's see the final execution now. Go get us talented, good coaches who are coveted in the league and give yourself an actual opportunity to be successful. Because at the end of the day, if you're a Jet fan, you want this man to figure it out. You do. You want them to get better next year. You want this team to show signs of life and not be a morgue at MetLife every single week. Okay? That's how I feel. Hopefully that's how most Jet fans feel. But I'll remain skeptical, but I'll remain honest. And at this point tonight, I'm happy as a Jet fan. He made the moves. They seemed very decisive in these things. And now we're going to find out how we move forward. So I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. Enjoy football this Sunday. 2 big games. See who goes to the Super Bowl. I expect Patriots to win. Even though Denver's a tough place, I think Patriots win that game without Knicks. I don't see it, unfortunately. And I think Darnold's going to the Super Bowl. I think that Seattle is going to. I think they're the better team. I think they're on one right now, and it'll be very interesting to see. So I expect a Seattle, New England Super Bowl. We'll see what happens. Click like and subscribe. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I'll chat with you soon.